Spectrum disorders in kids are complicated by genetics, environment, and nutritional factors. Let's review a few abstracts, and then we can wonder why there's that common thread that seems to run through those disorders. It seems to be a common thread that regardless of the diagnosis, relief comes when calm prevails. So we're going to be talking specifically about the EMPowerplus formula today. This is something that I've been using for the last 24 years. I used it for completely different, maybe not completely different reasons. I was diagnosed with rapid cycling bipolar 1 with schizophrenic tendencies in my early 20s and continued on with that for a good few years, 13 medications, several hospitalizations later, was not doing well. So since that time, my father's formulation that was developed for me became a formula that was actually put into an all-in-one and then researched multiple times over. So this morning I was actually going through and just getting up to date on the research that has been published. We've got 34 published studies in medical journals from around the world. Some of the work that's come out of New Zealand is absolutely brilliant, and actually out of Canada as well. Dr. Bonnie J. Kaplan has just spearheaded this thing worldwide because of her experiences first with my father and his business partner. I remember going and talking to her one of the first times before she started researching, and she has just been an incredible spearhead for helping scientists around the world to understand why this is an important thing to study. So EMPowerplus is not a single ingredient, and that kind of goes against the grain for a lot of researchers. They want to study one ingredient at a time, but nutrition is not used one ingredient at a time. So I'm going to have to decline that call there just a second. Nutrition only works in concert with cofactors, lots of different ingredients at a time, and that's why this is an important factor. So taking a look at this thing here, I got a little thrown off by that phone call, and I hope that it wasn't something that I absolutely needed to hear from my friend Jennifer. I hope I have sound. If you can hear me and you are on one of these lives, give me a thumbs up or something and let me know that it's actually working, okay? So the first study that I wanted to cover today, because I've had several questions come in this morning, is about the autism study for kids. So I'm just going to go through this real brief. Okay, 44 kids, parents came forward and said that they wanted from their caregiver, they wanted a non-pharmaceutical approach to treating their kid with autism. So they matched this for the study. They had those 44 kids that had requested a natural supplement or something non-pharmaceutical because they were concerned about side effects in children. And so they matched it with 44 other children. So it's a pretty decent sized study when you're looking at tracking kids through several different scales for behavior. And they used standard scales for autism rating scales, psychiatric rating scales, and a behavior checklist as well. And what they noticed was pretty darn amazing. So here's the thing. When this study came out, I was completely mind blown by it because I didn't see autism as a behavioral disorder. I thought that it was rooted in something else, and I think it is. But what we understand with this, or what I understand from this, is that when rage and other factors are taken away, kids are able to focus on healing the other important things that nutrition is not going to help with. So, and I'll do an ADHD conversation at some point because there's a lot of things nutrition will help, and then there's some learned behaviors that it actually doesn't help, but you can't really change a learned behavior until you're calm enough to be reasoned with. So here was the outcome for these 44 kids that were using it. We're using the EMPowerplus formulation. There were some advantages to treatment with micronutrients. This is a quote from this study. Lower activity level, less social withdrawal, less anger, better spontaneity with the examiner, less irritability, lower intensity of self-injurious behaviors, and markedly fewer adverse events and less weight gain. Those are some pretty significant benefits. If you are a mom and you're dealing with a kid with autism, you know that putting them on medication has some, it does, it has some good parts. There are some good things about it, and they actually list them here. But you also know that there's a lot of side effects that you don't really want to have your kid dealing with, a lot of other things that are not necessarily health promoting. The benefits that the researcher listed, advantages of medication management, were that there was insurance coverage, which is a really big deal. For some families, they can't do something that isn't covered by insurance. They just don't have the resources for it. That there were fewer pills, going from maybe 1 pill or 2 pills a day to 8 pills a day with the micronutrients was a marked difference for some kids, and less frequent dosing. So, taking pills once a day instead of taking them with meals mattered. So medication, I think, absolutely came out on the convenience side. But when you look at less irritability, better spontaneity with the examiner, less social withdrawal, less anger, less activity level, that's a pretty good payoff also. And that's absolutely something that I'd be choosing for my kids. So micronutrient treatment absolutely came out on top as far as I'm concerned in this study. So there were some other studies that I took a look at. And actually, I want to come back to that self-injurious behavior. So self-injurious behavior is something that I had in spades. I had a real struggle with that. When I would reach a certain point of stress, and I don't know, talking to my doctors, is this a chemistry thing? Is this a trauma thing? I don't know. But my husband, as a married woman with a child, my husband would find me beating myself senseless, pounding my own face, scratching myself in a closet. And that was a regular occurrence. When something would tip me over and I was stressed, I just had no capacity to deal with that stress. And that carried on for the first several years of our marriage. So I can attest to the fact that it's really hard to learn better behaviors or to change your habits when you're dealing with self-injurious behavior. So that one thing alone, if you're dealing with a child with autism and they have habits that are self-injurious, being able to lower that and calm that need or impulse in the brain makes a world of difference in terms of being able to learn and develop better habits. Let me see here. Okay, a couple of other ones I just wanted to cover. So spectrum disorders. There's a spectrum called pediatric bipolar spectrum disorder. And I know that they're really cautious about not wanting to diagnose kids with bipolar. The average onset for bipolar is more like early 20s, late teens, early 20s. But in these cases, these kids were actually diagnosed with this as a spectrum disorder. They were taking 5 capsules a day over an 8-week period. There was in only 8 weeks, there was a 37% decrease on depression scores. So think about if you were filling out a form about depression, all of the lists of symptoms that would be coming down there, and a 45% decrease in mania scores. What does mania look like in a child between the age of 6 and 12? That could look like a lot of awful things. And there's a common thread that runs through a whole lot of other disorders that might be classified as mania. But these kids, 45% decrease on their mania scores. So I think that that's super significant. It's really important to note, too, that in these studies, when they talk about the side effects from the EMPowerplus formulation, the formula that I've been using, they talk about transient, temporary gastric symptoms. So getting used to a new food, basically. And I have heard people report things like a headache. So getting used to a new food, needing to increase their water intake or whatever. That's a significant difference in side effects. And I think it's really important to note that the side effects of psychiatric medications far exceed minor gastric temporary problems. There's one more study that I wanted to just take a look at here, and this is one with explosive rage in children. So again, these kids were not specifically autistic. These children were having all sorts of problems with explosive rage, however, and they were put into an open trial. So there was no placebo or anything involved, but basically giving it to them, measuring what happens, taking it away, looking at what happens, giving it back to them, seeing if it went away again. And it's called an ABAB design. So mood, angry outbursts, and obsessional symptoms improved when initially treated and returned when they weren't taking the supplement, and then remitted when the micronutrient supplement was reintroduced. I've seen this in my life before. Anybody who's used this supplement for a long time knows when there's a major change or when there has been a change in the formulation, we feel it. And there's an increase in symptoms one more time. Again, with the telephone. This is what I get for trying to simulcast. It doesn't always work. And that's about where I wanted to leave that. Mood lability and explosive rage can, in some cases, be managed with a mixture of biologically active minerals and vitamins. And the study was using the EMPowerplus formulation. There are two places that you can get that formula. You can get it from True Hope in Canada, and you can also get it through Renova Worldwide, which is a company that's rooted here in Idaho. It's in the United States, and they have a couple of different forms. They have the classic form, which is the capsules, which you hear referenced in the studies. So kids taking between 4 and 8 of these, and then the formula has also been put into a new form, which is now just being studied, and it hasn't been completed yet. But the mineral formulation put into a micronutrient supplement like this, which is actually really sweet and yummy. It's easy to take. It's a powder, and it absorbs underneath the tongue. So if you're interested in having one of your kids or all of your kids or maybe your whole family feeling better and just a whole lot calmer so that you can deal with the other issues of the day, this is a fantastic way to be able to do that. And I would just encourage you to reach out on whatever platform you're seeing. I'm casting right now to Feel Better with Autumn Stringham on Facebook. It's a private group, and anyone is welcome to join if you're looking for information or help with your kids. I do mom coaching and can work with you privately also. And feel free to reach out on my brand new Instagram that's just growing at Autumn Stringham on Instagram. All right. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. There we go.